Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your host, Deshaun Sullivan from The Sully Podcast. You can find The Sully Podcast on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, Spotify, and Instagram, all at The Sully Podcast. On Facebook, our username is at Real Sully Podcast. So on here, we do try to stick to a very familiar topic in human trafficking, and we've spoken about a few different things here in the past. The situations with Palestine, and I've had a few guests on today. Though my previous guests have explained a little bit of their experiences with different things in life, and I personally want to speak about what brought me to, I guess, where I am today, and what brought me into Islam as well. A lot of people have asked that I kind of elaborate on that. So I want to take this episode to really speak on that. So today, really start, again, I was personally in a human trafficking situation by myself, and I didn't have much real guidance on any tips, any info, in regards to human trafficking. I was very green, into the whole entire thing. So learning about my own situation, learning about, the different, I guess, price ranges and variances, between what I was, charging for some of my own things versus the others in my industry at that time, learning about the green industry's human trafficking situation, all sorts of various different things like this is what kind of got my head started thinking about actual like human trafficking, how that works. Long story short, the landscaping industry, the green industry in general, that is one of the higher frequency industries for human trafficking. You can obviously, I guess, think about how that could go and happen. So when it comes to the regards of human trafficking inside the industry, it's exploiting people for their labor and exploiting them for what they can do, the longevity of their career. So lots of illegals get human trafficked into that situation. A lot of people that don't really have many opportunities, or they may seem like they may have lots of items per se, they may have lots of things, but they're not making a great income. They're not making much money. Their families are kind of worried about these people, these individuals, and that certain things don't line up necessarily. Like, you'll go on trips in different places and have nice clothes and different things like this, but, you can't pay your own, rent. You can't pay your apartment dues or your HOA fees and things like this if you even have a home. But there are different frequencies and variances when it comes to human trafficking. A lot of people can have lots of money and still be trafficked and not even know it. For me, it started a little bit before I was actually in the green industry, in the landscaping business, when I was actually initially trafficked. That was for, different things and variant situations in my past life that I don't want to necessarily bring up, but I was being used to do certain things, coerced to do certain things beyond my will. Then that evolved and transferred into the landscaping business. Once, it was having a very big dramatic effect on me, in my physical health, my finances, and all sorts of things, then that all got translated and transferred into politics and getting big into that game. So these are all very big industries for human trafficking. I don't know if a lot of people understand or recognize that. There's lots of politicians that are in that game. And I know I've spoken about that in the previous podcast with Alex, but there's lots of politicians, lots of police officers, lawyers, rather higher up people in these different entities, these different legal entities that are involved. And so for me, a lot of the things that were happening to me were by people that first, originally, I thought that they did follow Islam. I thought they were Muslims and true believers. And it's not for me to say if they are or if they're not. That is one big thing in Islam, that you can't really say, if somebody is a disbeliever or not, or a hypocrite or not. But I will say that finding the correct version of Islam, the way to practice, the way to be very patient, for things, backbiting, not slandering people, that I will say, that learning those key principles, learning those core values is what brought me out of my own human trafficking situation. So when I was actually in the mosque, I was freaking out one day. I was freaking out one day, I actually slept outside for the first time ever in my life, I slept outside of a hotel for the whole night. I was scared, you know what I'm saying? Because I was in a human trafficking situation previously. I had no real where to go. It was just a little bit too dangerous for my family to take at that time. So I was outside, right? And I was a Christian. I was praying to, find some real guidance in this situation, to find peace in this situation. Long story short, something just really intrigued me about coming back to Islam. And then I felt the pull to actually do it more and more and more. And that very next day, I was actually invited back to the UIC, the biggest mosque that we have here in Greenville, the Upstate Islamic Center. I was invited back there. One of my good friends, he had me take my Shahada once more. And so I came back into the deen. Once I came back into the deen and the religion, this time reading the Quran for, I believe it was my first time reading it all the way through. Once I read it all the way through, I learned everything that I needed to in regards to the trafficking situation. So there was lots of neo-Nazism involved in that, and there was lots of neocons involved in that situation, personally for myself, but I know for a lot of others. And, the Quran actually, honestly, it does speak on that. It speaks about the Confederates. It speaks about, Naziat, it speaks about that, which is, the angels that strip out souls of the good and the bad. Now, granted, obviously, Nazis are not angels, but it does speak about certain things and certain aspects of what these people try to do and utilize, in the Quran. So what we believe in as jinn, we believe in that there's good jinn and bad jinn. And a lot of people, they, again, once more do black magic, and they utilize those jinn to be able to control certain people. And to an unreligious person, I know that may sound kind of crazy, but every scientist, every person that's delved into any real science in general, you don't have to be somebody that does, biology or physiology, things like that. But everybody, generally believes that we have a soul and a spirit, right? So there has to be a spiritual realm outside of what our physical existence would be. Being able to understand that and diagnose what actually is happening in that spiritual realm that could be used against certain people, that's huge, because again, there's lots of people that do that, black magic, stuff like that. They have lots of money, they have lots of things. You can utilize those jinn for, you can't really utilize them for good purposes. You can utilize them only for negative purposes, and that does bring about a curse from, the words of the Quran when you actually do utilize that black magic. So again, there's things like that. There's different microchipping, mechanisms that people can actually use and utilize, and, drugging people without their consent. There's so much things that go on in human trafficking when it comes to recognizing different signs and different things in people. And, spywares, there's all sorts of stuff that comes into it. So I guess for me, I was drugged behind my wheels, for certain things. I was raped at one point. I had a lot of things going on at that specific moment in my life, you know what I'm saying? But I guess that things happen, they all happen for a reason. But I guess my ability to actually be able to kind of speak to everybody else and speak on these things, and let people know like what the signs are, what actually goes into it. I do believe that that's my life purpose. I say that, because if I were to make zero money off of this podcast, just spreading awareness for certain causes, like this human trafficking, for example, I would just be totally fine without the actual currency, because I want to give the information out, change people's lives, and not necessarily profit off of somebody else's life or profit off of people. So today, that's where we're going to wrap this first episode up. And I just want to tell you guys that, again, you can find The Sully Podcast at TheSullyPodcast, The Sully Podcast, on YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, Facebook, and Spotify. On Facebook, our username is at Real Sully Podcast. Once more, I'm your host, Deshaun Sullivan, and I hope you guys have a blessed day. Peace.